Silvio Berlusconi, the billionaire media mogul and former Italian prime minister who transformed the nation's politics with polarizing policies and often alarmed his allies with his brazen remarks, died on June 12, aged 86. Berlusconi, Italy's longest-serving premier who counted Russian President Vladimir Putin as a close friend and gained notoriety for his bunga sex parties, had suffered from leukemia and recently developed a lung infection. He died at a hospital in Milan. His 5 children, partner Marta, younger brother Paolo were with him at the hospital. June 14th was an official day of national mourning in Italy, with flags flying half-mast to mark the death of Silvio Berlusconi, the country's most divisive and charismatic public figure who dominated politics, business, and sports for decades. Tens of thousands of supporters of the controversial 4-time Prime Minister gathered for a state funeral on June 14th in Milan to pay their respects to the so-called knight, a man who embodied the modern era of self-made muggles and remained a darling to many Italians despite a history of legal woes, sex scandals, and international gaffes. By huge wealth and his media empire, Berlusconi launched into politics in 1994, upending traditional parties and becoming premier. Another businessman, Donald Trump, would mirror that approach in the United States 2 decades later. Berlusconi's passing was mourned by political allies and rivals at home and leaders abroad, including Putin, who said he was a true friend. I have always sincerely admired his wisdom, his ability to make balanced, far-sighted decisions even in the most difficult situations. That relationship was one of many from Berlusconi's colorful public and private life that caused a headache for allies and fodder for the foes. Berlusconi refused to blame Putin for Russia's 2020 invasion of Ukraine, saying Moscow only wanted to put decent people in charge. Enrico Letta, a former center-left premier, wrote on Twitter, "Berlusconi made the history of our country. His death marks one of those moments in which everyone, whether or not they backed his choices, feels affected." Another former premier, Mario Draghi, a non-partisan figure and one-time head of the European Central Bank, said Berlusconi transformed politics and was loved by millions of Italians for his humanity and charisma. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken extended his condolences to the family of Berlusconi and the Italian people, calling him a tremendously significant figure in the life of Italy. MEF's A and B shares jumped by as much as 10% after Berlusconi's death was reported, with traders on the Milan Bourse saying it could pave the way for the company to be sold or merged with a rival. Let's talk about some of the scandals and controversies Berlusconi faced throughout his life. After graduating from the University of Milan with a degree in law, Berlusconi became a real estate developer, amassing a considerable fortune by the 1970s. He created the cable television firm Tele Milano in 1974 and 4 years later mounted the first direct challenge to the national television monopoly. In 1980, he established Canal 5, Italy's first commercial television network, and by the end of the decade, Berlusconi created stations dominated Italian airwaves. Berlusconi also diversified his business holdings, acquiring department stores, movie theaters, publishing companies, and the AC Milan football team. He consolidated his empire under the umbrella of the Fininvest Holding Company, a vast conglomerate that grew to control more than 150 businesses. After building a real estate, soccer, and television empire in the 1970s and 80s, Berlusconi threw himself into politics, becoming prime minister 4 times in 1994 to 95, 2001 to 2005, 2005 to 6, and 2008 to 11, despite multiple legal scandals. In 1994, Berlusconi founded Forza Italia, a conservative political party, and was elected prime minister. His tenure proved turbulent. Shortly after he took office in May 1994, officials launched a corruption investigation into his business empire. And disputes within the governing coalition culminated in the Liga Nord, the Northern League Party's defection in December. Facing a no-confidence vote, Berlusconi announced his resignation on December 22, 1994, but stayed on in a caretaker capacity until January 1995. He was later convicted of fraud and corruption, but the verdicts were eventually overturned. Despite these charges and criticism of his control of much of the Italian media, he remained the leader of Forza Italia. Promising tax cuts, more jobs and higher pensions, he led a center-right coalition to victory in the 2001 national parliamentary elections and again became prime minister. When he last stepped down in 2011, Italy was close to a Greek-style debt crisis and his own reputation was tarnished by allegations that he had hosted bunga sex parties with underage women, something he denied. He was acquitted on appeal on all charges related to the parties, but was convicted of tax fraud in 2013, leading to a 5-year ban on holding public office. He was still involved in one trial when he died. Despite his health woes and the relentless court battles, Berlusconi refused to relinquish control of Forza Italia and returned to frontline politics, winning a seat in the European Parliament in 2019 and the Italian Senate last year. Perennially suntanned and vigorously promoted by his own media companies, Berlusconi brought his great skills as a salesman and communicator to the state world of politics, offering a bright, optimistic look that voters lapped up. His sense of humor often landed him in trouble. Most recently in December, when he told players of his Monza soccer team he would bring them a bus of whores if they beat a top Serie A rival. They went on to win. Berlusconi is survived by 33-year-old Fascina, whom he called his wife despite not marrying her, 2 ex-spouses, 5 children, more than a dozen grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson.